The third stage we get a hint at here in John 1:33. John writes, I myself did not know him, but he who sent me to baptize with water said to me, he on whom you see the Spirit descend and remain, this is he who baptizes with the Holy Spirit. Now this language of the baptism here is built and borrowed from Old Testament experiences in Israel's life. Salvation experience, of course, you remember, was Israel passing through the Red Sea, baptized in the sense going through the water to get them to the place of redemption, deliverance, being set free to follow after God. But that going through the water, or baptism in the Red Sea, was repeated a second time when Israel went through the waters of the river Jordan to get into the land of Canaan, which represented God's best for his people. They've been wandering 40 years in the desert. And God said, I've got something more than this for you. But there's a second baptism going through the waters of the river Jordan to get there. That's the historical background here. Now, for God's people in the New Testament, for the disciples of Jesus, this second baptism of the Spirit that John hints at here in the passage we read in verse 33, he who on whom you see the Spirit descend and remain, this is he who baptizes with the Holy Spirit. That didn't happen in the lives of disciples until the day of Pentecost. Acts chapter 2. But for Jesus himself, it happened at the beginning of his ministry as he starts his ministry, but also modeling that this was to happen to his disciples sometime in the future. Now, multiple things happen when disciples are baptized with the Holy Spirit. And we could spend the whole seminar time just on this. Maybe we'll do that another year together here. So there's a freedom not to have to do things my way, but a freedom to do things God's way. Secondly, there's an imparting of the holy character of Jesus in righteousness and in love. Imparting Christ-likeness in righteousness and in love. Thirdly, there's a deeper relationship with the Father, Son, and Spirit. It comes with a surrender of the will and the life, and so one's relationship is more intimate and personal with all three persons of the Trinity. Fourthly, there's an empowering for ministry. An empowering for ministry. Spirit came upon the disciples in the upper room. Peter stood up to preach. 3,000 people responded to his invitation. Fifthly, there's an imparting of a clearer vision of what God is doing and wants to do. An imparting of a clearer vision of what God is doing and wants to do. And the reason you get a clearer vision is because God's now in control of one's imagination. So he can give you a better vision of what he wants to do. And the sixth thing that happens is that the disciples are enabled to think as God thinks. They're enabled to think as God thinks. God's got control of their reason. I don't have to think with everything just centered around me. Now it's what I get to think about what God's doing and how God's working. It's a whole